Deep, thank you so much for joining us on Cricket Unplugged at the Umpire's Call. Absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Same here.
First and foremost, how has lockdown been for you, considering it's been a fairly difficult time for everybody around?
It was initially difficult. I'll be very honest. First couple of weeks, you're like, see, people like us, I'm not just saying sports people, but all of us who are used to working, just to be staying at home and locked down and all the uncertainty surrounding you, that can get to you. But, after the first couple of weeks, I kind of realized that there's so many things that I always wanted to do, but never had the time to do it.
Right.
So I said, let's try and be as productive as possible. And then started doing did a course on sports psychology, online course. Then started doing a little bit of, I always wanted to learn Spanish. So started, doing some stuff online regarding Spanish. And then started my own, I'm starting rather, my own online coaching platform as well. So working on that. So things like that and keeping myself busy, talking to people like yourself. It's not just about talking to you and talking about myself, but it's also about, getting to understand various things and various people. Yeah, so keeping myself busy and reading, obviously. Yeah, I'm glad I've read a fair bit in the last 2-3 months now.
Nice. Awesome. It's probably been the same for a lot of people where they've managed to catch up on stuff that they've always wanted to do, but were tied up with their day-to-day stuff. So I can completely understand. So we'll take this opportunity to go on a small journey back in time, right? So I'll start off with the fact that you were born in Calcutta, but obviously you moved to Delhi at a very, very young age. Any particular reason why cricket was something that you took up as a sport, or were you interested in other stuff as well before delving into cricket properly?
I've always been interested in sports, to be honest, and our generation kind of lucky because we didn't have too many options, right? So either it was sports or studies, and sports also it was more like and we would love to go out and play. As soon as the clock hit 4 p.m., you'd be like, I need to go out to the park and play with your friends. Sure. Right? So we would be actually waiting for that time and would be looking at the clock and it's like, okay, now it's 4 and now I can go.
Sure.
So I guess that helped a lot in terms of going out there and playing all kinds of sports, starting from football to cricket to hockey. And then when I was in school, started playing basketball, volleyball and all that stuff. So have always been like very sporty in terms of, physical, going out there and playing. Right. And also the fact that from an early age was kind of introduced to, as in watching sports as well. So that's the other thing, because it was very simple. We didn't have too many options, right? Even on television, one channel, and then you could, and I wasn't really allowed to watch television, but every time there was sports on, table tennis, lawn tennis, Olympics. So that was the time where my parents never said no to it. They always said, yeah, you want to watch sports? Okay, that's fine.
Right.
As long as it's sports, I could watch television. So always was kind of, that's how I got introduced into sports. And cricket, our generation, 83, then 85 happened. I was 6 and then 8.
Yep.
And so obviously, cricket even now, you go around, you hear about cricket and cricketers and stuff like that. So cricket was obviously one of the natural kind of, gravitated towards it.
Sure. Interesting you mentioned the 83 when you were 6. I was just 10 years old at that time. And that happened to be yesterday. Yeah. So yesterday was the anniversary, right? The 25th of June. And that was a momentous occasion for not just people who followed cricket in India, but just overall as a nation. I think we just took it to another level for our love for the game.
Absolutely, yes. And for various things, for the sport as well. If you look at it commercially, cricket has become such a success story over the years, especially in the Commonwealth countries. I think a lot of it has to do with the 83 win by India, because obviously that's when cricket started being commercialized in India. Obviously, when Mr. Dalmia took over, it became very commercial, but sure, the process started 83. That's a very interesting story. Maybe we can talk about it later. Why it happened. Why did India want to get into kind of the sport? Very interesting story, actually.
Okay, sure. We'll come back to that. Now, staying on with your initial foray into cricket in Delhi, when we were growing up as kids and we were playing in school or in the neighborhood, we either wanted to be a batsman or we wanted to be a bowler. The only reason we ever got around to being a wicket keeper was when you had to stand at the back and you were not good for anything else and you had to go retrieve the ball. So why did you specifically go into wicket keeping as such?
I mean, for that very reason. So at a very early age, I realized bowling is not my thing, right? I couldn't bowl. I couldn't bowl to save my life. So the only thing I could do was bat. And then I realized after batting, there's nothing much that I could do. Yeah, and you kind of, I would get bored fielding somewhere in the deep. So once I said, okay, let's try keeping, and I fell in love with it. Being in the middle of the whole thing, and you're right in the center of the ground, and you had a glove, then you could dive around, you can lie around, and all that stuff.
Right.
And I said, yeah, why not? Let's do this, because predominantly because I was getting bored. Fielding and all that. Right. So I was like, okay, let's do this then.
Okay, awesome. Any role models growing up in from a wicket keeping perspective specifically?
Not really, to be honest, because while growing up, what happens is, yes, at that point in time, there wasn't much television anyways, right?
Sure. Yep.
So obviously, Kiran Bhai, by the time I actually started watching cricket, Kiran Bhai was the wicket keeper for India then. So obviously watching Kiran Bhai, obviously watched a little bit of Kiri Bhai as well.
Sure.
Then, people like, at a later stage, people like Healy and all that I really admired. But actually what you would also do, a lot of young kids see people around you, right? When you're 10, 11, 12, you see these senior wicket keepers and it's like, oh my God, this guy is a very good wicket keeper and I want to be like him and all that. Because it was easier to relate to them. So right. Someone is playing under 19, somebody's playing for college or university. There were a couple of good keepers while I was growing up, practicing that same area. And I would watch them and talk to them and stuff like that. But if you're asking if I had anyone that I wanted to kind of follow, not really, to be honest.
Right. Having been obviously a wicketkeeper, not just for the state team, but then again for the national team as well. And now that you're in the media and you cover the game from various venues across the world, be it World Cups, be it series between teams. How have you seen this progression happen in the role of the wicketkeeper from how it originally started to now?
The role of the keeper, obviously, the mindset has changed quite a bit. So, for example, if I look at the 80s and 90s, and there would be wicket keepers who are wicket keeper batsmen. Now, it has shifted, pivoted a little bit, and have become like batsmen who can keep. So, there's a very minute change in that term, but actually, see, the thing is, wicket keepers, and a lot of people are talking about it now, right? About wicket keeping and should people focus on only keepers. Listen, wicket keepers were always good batsmen. If you even go back to, let's say, people I can remember watching a little bit, is Alan Knott, Rodney Marsh, Kiri Bhai. They were all good, batsmen as well. They were very good keepers, but they were average batsmen or better than average batsmen.
Absolutely.
So slowly teams have also realized, that a keeper, if he can bat, that makes a huge difference, right? Sure. So like we talk about all-rounders, wicket-keeper is an all-rounder. So if you have a valuable all-rounder in your side who can bowl and bat equally, it's a huge advantage and a huge bonus. So I think that mindset gradually has changed in the last, let's say, 2 decades, especially, let's say, ever since Gilchrist, Boucher, and obviously now MSD as far as India is concerned. So obviously that mindset has changed quite a bit.
Sure.
And also the process. I think that's also very important. A lot of people say, okay, why aren't we looking at players who can keep alone, as in a proper keepers, and obviously can bat. See, the thing is, how does a wicket keeper come into prominence? you will only get to know of a 15-year-old who's a good wicket keeper is only when he starts scoring runs. You see somebody's name in the paper, like, oh, this kid is scoring a lot of runs. Oh, he happens to be a keeper as well. Because irrespective of how good a keeper, you're never going to get your name out there just by keeping, right? You take 4 wonderful catches and nobody will mention it, right? And you score 40 runs and you get a mention in the newspaper.
Sure.
So automatically, if you look at the process, I mean, the process kind of encourages a wicketkeeper to be a good batsman and a proper batsman.
Yeah, and interesting that you mentioned the names that you did because that was part of what my question would have been as well. So while the likes of Alan Knott, Rodney Marsh, Kiribati in India, of course, were adept wicket keepers and then were adept batsmen as well. I think the shift probably happened in cricket when in the 96 World Cup, you had the likes of Kaluwitana being thrown up at the top of the order, right? And it took on an entirely new form. And then the likes of Gilchrist and McCullum and all came in and just took it to the next level. Which then brings me to a different question, related but different question. Are wicket keepers born or are they made? And if they are to be made, what sort of age should they be looking at when we start grooming them? I remember recently reading somewhere that you said 21 is definitely not the age. We need to catch them in their teens, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, on the other side, I also believe that it's imperative that till the age of, let's say, 11, 12, you play multiple sport, right? And slowly after that, you gravitate towards your passion, you gravitate towards something that you're good at, right? But the exposure to other sports are very, very important. That's the reason and especially now, because when I was growing up, cricket was not a very athletic sport. It was like a very skill-based sport, right? And if you look at things now in the last decade or so, you've got to be an athlete to be a cricketer, right? You can't be overweight and play cricket anymore.
Sure.
Right. So I think those things have changed now, and that's the reason. And going back to your primary question, whether you make a keeper, a wicket keeper, or they're natural keepers. So you have certain natural keepers as well, but this whole idea of that keepers can't be made, that is also not true. You've got to have the basic stuff like, catching a ball and stuff like that. I mean, I'm sure if you're a good fielder, for example, someone like AP de Villiers, you put him anywhere, he'll be brilliant, right?
Absolutely.
You put him behind the stumps, you put him at mid-off, mid-on point, slip, anywhere, he'll be brilliant.
True.
So, for example, KL Rahul is a brilliant fielder, he's a brilliant catcher, period. Put him in slips, wicket keeping, mid-off, mid-on, anywhere. Same with Riddhiman Saha. He's got brilliant hands. So my point is, yes, there are certain guys who are natural, and there are certain guys who have those basic things in them, and you can work on them.
Sure.
And work them to make it better or enhance those natural qualities that they have. But yes, natural qualities you would need. Any industry for that matter.
Absolutely.
If you ask the same question, can anyone become a cricketer? No, you've got to have some basic talent to become a cricketer. Right. So I think that's for every industry. You've got to have that basic talent, and then you can sharpen those skills.
Sure. Now, on the journey to becoming a cricketer, obviously there are certain milestones that come along, right? Your first call up for Bengal. Do you remember when, where exactly?
I think I remember. I got a call. Obviously from a journalist that my name, because at that point in time, Sabha was the wicketkeeper for Bengal,
right?
Sabha Karim, and he was also captain, right? So obviously, and what happened was that season in local cricket, I scored a few runs, and I could hear people talking about me getting into the team as a batsman, and that's how I started. My first 3-4 games, or the first season actually, I played as a batsman, right, as an opener.
Yeah.
So I knew that I was in the fringes, but then I got a call from a journalist saying, for my reaction and all that jazz. And that's how I came to know. And that was a big thing. That was a very, very big thing.
And then you go out to play against Baroda for your debut, and you end up scoring 100. Go taking
Yeah,
that
I mean,
to the other side of it, the one that we don't get to see as fans or as people following the game. What's that mindset like to walk out first game ever and then the joy of scoring that 100?
yeah, I mean, what happened was actually, I think, I not I think we batted second, so we had to field for a day and a half, and I wasn't keeping. I was actually batting, as in I was fielding at short leg, silly point, and stuff like that. But
Right.
I think we had to field for a day and a half. I think some Jacob Martin got a double 100 or something in that game. And then I remember being nervous. But you know what the advantage is? Once the game starts, then you kind of immerse into the game,
Sure.
right? If I mean things would be different, and I would have been more nervous if I had to bat first. But because I was on the field for a day and a half, and you kind of realize, okay, this is what first class cricket is. And I remember being very nervous the first few overs, surely. But
Right.
after that, kind of, because you still are kind of not sure whether you're ready for that level or not. Because these jumps are massive. Local cricket, first class, then from first
Sure.
class to international. These are big jumps. So you really don't know whether you're good enough or not at that level or not. So first few overs, obviously you're nervous. And then once you play 4, 5 overs and you're like, you know what, I can do this. I can handle this thing.
Right.
And then everything was a blur, because then you get into that zone, and then things happen instinctively. Then you're really not thinking too much. You just, as we say, watch the ball and play the ball.
Absolutely. So, like you very rightly mentioned, that jump obviously from a local cricket level to the state level in itself is a huge jump. As a
Yeah.
state player, then how does your mind work in terms of preparation, working on your own skills and stuff to feel that I need to do X, Y, Z to be able to compete for a place in the national team?
uh it was very interesting, because I always dreamt of playing for the country, but it was never like a planned thing. It's not like,
Sure.
okay, I'm at 20, I've made my debut in first class cricket. Within 2 years, 3 years, I have to play certain level or whatever. It was never like that. So it all so happened that, for example, when I first got into the Bengal side, then my target was to get in as a wicket-keeper batsman, because I was still in there as a batsman.
Right.
Sabha Bhai retired, and then I was like, okay, now I'm the wicket-keeper batsman. Then I was picked for the zone. We call the Dulip Trophy. So
Yeah.
Dulip Trophy, there are 5 zone teams, right? So my next thing was, okay, now I am, let's say, in the top 8 wicket keepers or 10 wicket keepers in the country. So I'm 1 out of 10.
Right.
Next, what happened was the National Cricket Academy happened. National Cricket Academy happened, and there I was one of the 3 wicket keepers. So I was like, okay, so now I am in one of the 3 wicket keepers that these people are looking at. So, so that way I did not plan or set a goal for myself. But once I kind of ticked a box, I was like, okay, now I've made a progression to the next level. This is where I am. Okay, now, okay, wherever I go, I go. So it was the other way around. It was like ticking boxes without actually having a goal for myself. I
Sure.
always wanted to play for the country. It's besides the point. Because the other important thing is, it's difficult to, because there are a lot of uncontrollables in a team sport, especially selection. Right? It's not in my hand whether I'll get selected or not. It's
Sure.
on the selectors. I can't control my selection. So those things I kind of knew at that point in time. I just have to do my job, enjoy this. And also, a lot of people don't realize, coming from the background I did, like my dad's a CA, my elder brother's a CA, there is also a lot of pressure because I've chosen this path, right?
Sure.
So I mean, till I actually played, it was only my second year in first class cricket. I was in college. That's when I realized that I have to take this up seriously. And because till my first year of first class cricket, I was enrolled in CA. I was enrolled for MBA, right? So it's not that this was my chosen path as in terms of profession.
Right.
I was playing cricket because I wanted to play, but only on conditions that I'm not going to leave my education completely.
Right.
So it was the only, I mean, I had to make that choice once I graduated. And by that time, I was like playing Dulip Trophy and all. That's where I realized. And I also had a job by then. No, I did not have a job, but I was on scholarship. that's when I realized, you know what, this is a full-time thing. I can't be studying and doing that. And that in itself is a huge mental struggle, right? Because
Sure.
you've been brought up in a certain way. And at that point in time, IPL wasn't there. So if you don't play for India, you actually can't live up to that lifestyle that you grew up with.
Right.
So that in itself is a struggle. And yeah, I mean, thank God things happened rather quickly. I graduated to that level, and making that choice became easier.
Yep. And then things did move fairly quickly, and then you got called up for India. That must have been brilliant.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was awesome. I remember we were in Hyderabad playing Moinudullah, and I got a call from my dad saying, you've been picked for the South Africa series. I had a little bit of an inkling about it. I was like, when you know that you're in the fray, you wait for that day when the selection happens, and you're like, okay, there are
Right.
butterflies in your stomach and all that. Because before that, I was part of a India camp. Because before that, I think India went to Zimbabwe for a series, and there was a camp which was held in Bangalore itself, and I was part of that camp. And so obviously, I knew that I was in the fray. Otherwise,
Sure.
they wouldn't call me.
Absolutely.
So when this happened, obviously, my dad called. I was like, yeah, wow, brilliant, and yeah, and that was huge. Obviously, yeah, it was dream come true.
And then when you did play your first test, I remember the story behind it, where you got called out to go out and play your first ever game within hours because of an injury
Yeah.
to the current keeper. Now, usually when you speak to cricketers and you talk about them anticipating their debut game, they have butterflies in their stomach the previous night, restlessness, all sorts of emotions, obviously, that go through it. In your case, you obviously didn't have a chance to do that. Was that a blessing in disguise?
That could be, yes. And when I think about it, quite possibly be yes, because as you mentioned, I mean, Samir was going to play that. Samir Dighe was going to play
Yeah.
that test match. And so the night before was normal. All right, I won't get an opportunity. And yeah, was like a normal night, and slept well, went to the ground. And what happens is when you're not playing, you help the guys who are playing with their routines, like chucking balls or giving catches. I remember I was giving catches to someone, and I could, corner of my eye, I could see Samir Dighe having a chat with Sourav, and then he had his hand on his back, and I was like, okay, not, I mean, there seems to be an issue there, right? And I see Sourav running to the dressing room to get changed for the toss. And on the way out, he said in Bengali, "Tui khelchish." Congratulations, Tui khelchish. I was like,
Nice.
oh, all right. So
Brilliant.
then I quickly went, and obviously everyone has their routine before a game. So I quickly went and did my routine and all that. We lost the toss. We were batting first. So okay, so everyone said congratulations and all that stuff. And before I could realize, we had lost 3 wickets quickly, and I was padded up then. So I could not really, I mean, the whole thing did not sink in till the end of the day,
Right.
because before it could sink in, I was padded up, ready to go in next. And then there was this wonderful, wonderful partnership between Sachin and Sehwag. Both of them got hundreds, and
Yeah.
I was kind of engrossed in that. And I was padded up because I was the next man in. And then my opportunity came. I went in. I did what I did. And then when I came back to my hotel, and that point in time, we did not have single rooms. That was the last series when people were still sharing rooms. My roommate was SS Das, Shiv Sundar Das.
Yeah.
Had a chat with Dasi. Then again got a call from my family, and it was my elder brother who said, "You know what? Do you realize, irrespective of what happens in this test match, you're a test player, and nobody can take that away from you." I was like,
Absolutely.
"Yeah, that's so true. I am a test player." So yeah, and that's when it kind of sunk in. Right? I'm a test player now.
So once that test player status has sunk into you, you're still obviously
Yeah.
with the team, sharing the dressing room with the likes of Sachin and Saurav. What's that like for a youngster in a national team for the first time?
That would be something like, when you go to your PhD, you have uh, 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 professors who are helping you out with your PhD in your thesis and stuff. That's
Sure.
like that, That's like you have all these mentors and you're writing your thesis and all, and these mentors are helping you out. And this is exactly what it was like. You had all these amazing human beings, not just cricketers,
Right.
who were absolutely brilliant, making everyone feel comfortable. And it was one, obviously, it was, I mean, when I walked into that dressing room, and again, these are pre IPL times, right?
Right.
Those are times where you rarely have played with them or against them. Uh, so you don't really know them. It's not like IPL nowadays that even before you play for your country, you have some kind of an idea about what international cricket is. Right?
Sure. This
So
was way back in
when I
2001.
walked into, I saw, yeah, I mean, and you got Sachin, Sourav, Rahul, Anil, Srinath,
Yeah.
such big names. And but they made me feel so comfortable, and everyone. It was like, what teammates are like. For the outside world, they are who they are, but inside the dressing room, they are your teammates.
Sure.
And I think, yeah, I mean, I've got to give credit to them for being who they are.
So now that you've obviously joined the team, you're part of the team. Your initial few innings don't go as planned or as well planned as you would have liked them to. Does from a
Yeah.
player's point of view, do you get an added level of frustration or anxiety, considering, hang on, I'm here with these guys, I need to perform, it's not going as well as I would like it to, and then I need to basically do something to step up?
Uh, as far as test is concerned, Riz, I think I did all right. And because I did all right, it was easier because the first debut game, I got a 30 odd.
Right.
Second innings didn't get much. And in the second test match, I got a 60 odd, 67, 68,
And you
but
help save the
actually
test.
batted. Yeah. So I think that was one of the best innings that I've ever played, to be honest. And I think that's where uh, I actually knew from the first innings itself, again, after playing the first 5-10 overs, that I can manage this, I can play this level.
Right.
And after that 67 odd, I knew I could. I was very confident I could. So that way, it wasn't an issue and it wasn't frustrating at all because I could see that in my teammates as well. Because one of the things that all of us want is acceptance from your peers, right? Irrespective of
Absolutely.
which industry you're part of. And once you see that in their eyes, and you see that in how they treat you and all, you know that you're part of it. Right? And I think in the very first innings, because I played the second new ball as well, those 34, 36 runs I got, it was kind of showed everyone that I could handle this.
Right.
So even though, yeah, I mean, I didn't get 100 or whatever only till my third test matches, which is comparatively early for a lot of people. I think they realized that I could handle this. See, the only issue that came up, and that's something that I kind of learned at later in my career, was the issue with criticism and my wicket keeping, right? And how to handle that.
Right.
That only came after the second series against England that I played, and that's where it started becoming more difficult for me. And
Right.
obviously, I've learned my lessons. I've learned how to handle that. But at that point in time, those are those are things that you really don't know how to handle, right? Again, one of the
Sure.
things pre IPL is nobody knows you, and then you play for the country, and then you're suddenly in the spotlight, right? So
Yeah.
now, again, if you're playing nowadays, one of the biggest advantages of IPL is before you play for the country, you're already in the limelight. You know how the spotlight feels. You
Yeah.
know how pressure feels, criticism, everything. So before playing for India, you have experienced all that. So I did not have the experience of all that before I played
Sure.
for the country. So while there was a lot of good things that was said, but after a couple of test matches or a couple of series rather, there was criticism as well, and that's where I think I did not handle it the way I would have liked to.
Which probably would have been easier now, Deep, considering the fact that most teams have psychologists and different personnel to cater to all these other aspects of the game and the person, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. I mean, there's a lot of awareness about it, but also individually, I think kids now are better rounded as players, and they
Sure.
understand, uh, what that territory is all about. It's not just about playing the game. It's also about what comes along with it. Like media, how to handle it, how to handle criticism, success, uh, attention, spotlight. I mean, kids nowadays, they are more rounded in handling all that. uh, During my time also, yes, there were people who were very good at it. Unfortunately, I wasn't. I did not have those tools to uh, kind of help me get out of it, right? I mean, like I said, I only learned those things a little later in my career, but by then it was too late. So that's one of the things I really like talking about it, and I don't mind answering those questions and talking about things that affected me, because if that can help someone else, because I'm sure there's still a lot of people who might be thinking like me, what I used to or what I did back then. If I could help them with whatever I've learned from experience.
No, and thank you for that. I mean, that's a very, very honest answer to how you saw yourself. And like you rightly said,